Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Duluth, Georgia, outside of Atlanta, Jacksonville, Florida, Tempe, Arizona, and Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets. So just speaking of the establishment media being in the tank for the Democrats, so here is the establishment media and the intelligence community, the deep state, being in the tank for the Democrats, right? It says Hunter Biden's story is Russian disinformation, dozens of former intel officials say. And I'm just surprising how accurate Russian disinformation actually is, isn't it? That's kind of amazing. Right.
That was the New York Times.
Yeah.
And that article may not be from the Times, but the Times called it Russian disinformation.
They all did. This one happens to be from Politico. But this happened yesterday. Politico put out this. This is a tweet from Politico. It says, they quote J.D. Vance saying, "Our corrupt leadership. Vance tries to tether Harris to Biden during Michigan rally." Well, that is so garbage that it got community noted on Twitter. I don't know if you know what that is, but that's something that Elon Musk has instituted, that readers, if enough of them try to correct something, it'll show up. And so readers added context. Kamala Harris is currently serving as vice president of the United States for the Biden-Harris administration, a role she was sworn into on January 20th, 2021. And Politico tries to make it look like he's trying to connect her to Biden. She's the vice president.
Right.
Is it just that they're just that sloppy now?
Well, no, they're that desperate.
Desperate.
I think they're desperate.
Why if Trump becomes president, it's good for them. They sell more newspapers. CNN gets ratings again. Why do you think they would be so much in the tank is it because they're owned by the same billionaires who own the political process?
Yeah, it's because the billionaire class is kind of split, but the billionaire class that dominates the media doesn't want Trump. I mean, these people dance. Remember that. So when I began in the newspaper business, 40% of ad revenue came from classified ads. Then you got Craigslist, and it's over. So that's almost 50%. Then once all the algorithms came in place, you didn't need newsprint to connect sellers with buyers. They had a monopoly. When I worked for the New York Times, they were making 23% profit. I mean, it was staggering amounts of money. That's all gone. And so they're so desperate now because of their bleeding advertisers that they cater more and more to whatever those advertisers want. They never covered Steve Donziger. You know this case. I think you reported it, because they set up, the New York Times set up its own advertising agency. It's called T something. I don't remember the name. And their biggest client is Chevron.
Oh, you so
yeah. So I actually wrote Dean Baquet when we were hired together. I said, "Come on, Dean, you got to cover Donziger." And I said, even if and he wrote this indignant email back, but they never covered it. They never, and we won't go into the whole history. They disbarred this guy because he won for these poor Ecuadorian peasants, whose lands have been poisoned by Chevron and Mobil. I mean, it was just awful. Put him under house arrest, and the New York court system turned it over to. You can't make this stuff up. A Chevron appointed attorney. I mean, it's just amazing. Anyway, I wrote a lot about it, and I love Steve. But there you go. They never covered it. Read the way they covered all the student protests of Columbia and everything else. They would find the 4 Zionist students somewhere, because half of those protests were Jewish students. And it was like, "Oh, I feel threatened. I don't feel this." And it's just the whole thing. And meanwhile, I was at the Princeton University encampment. I was at the Columbia University. They were holding the whole Muslim prayers and Shabbat services on the same. It was quite moving, actually. I mean, these people were totally inclusive. But the Times coverage was just horrendous. And their Israel coverage on Gaza has been horrendous and embarrassing. But what it is that as the advertising dollars have shrunk, they've constricted. So there, as I said before, there once was a place for a reporter like me at the Times. Now there isn't anymore, because they're so frightened, and it's all commercial. It's all and they have to cater to those advertisers they have left.
So,
like Big Pharma is huge.
And that's exactly right. Well, if people don't know, Steve Donziger, so he sued on behalf of them polluting the Chevron, right? And then he won. He won the case.
Yeah, well, that's what pissed him off. $9 billion.
And then they didn't want to pay.
Chevron could not get out of Ecuador fast enough.
Yeah.
And then they spent millions and millions of dollars to destroy him personally.
And they finally found this corrupt judge, and the corrupt judge put the lawyer who won the case on house arrest and
disbarred him.
And all the horrible things happened to him. We've had him on the show. We've reported
he's
this
a
story.
wonderful guy.
And he's a wonderful guy. And then when they convicted Trump in New York, they had to repeal the statute of limitations law just so they could sue Donald Trump. They got that same lawyer to take care of that case. It's a crazy story. Hey, come see us on tour. We're going to be in Duluth, Georgia, outside of Atlanta, Jacksonville, Florida, Tempe, Arizona, and Burbank, California. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets.